Well, that was a fun bar mitzvah. I should drink more often. I don't want what they're selling.
Is this Tom and Eric?
No, just Eric. Tom's on a vacation somewhere in Syria. Who is this?
My name is not important. Just call me Big Boars.
I'd rather not.
Listen, Eric, the gaming community is going to shit. Video game reviews aren't as popular anymore. It's all drama, politics, and Vine compilations. Face it, YouTube is ruined.
And what am I supposed to do about that?
It's time that you become an internet reviewer, Eric.
No.
Do this, and you will restore YouTube to its former glory.
No.
And you'll get bitches and money.
Well, I never want to argue, but which game should I review?
Seeing as we're already parodying Metal Gear, should you review that?
Okay.
It's showtime!
Let's talk about Hideo Kojima.
Oh yeah, Saint Kojima himself. Before becoming one of the most influential game developers in the world and spawning a generation of memes, Kojima had a lot of different career choices in mind. He tried everything from writing, illustrating, filmmaking, but eventually settled for getting a job in the video game industry after spending most of his college free time playing his Famicom. Mostly Super Mario Bros. And Portopia. Eventually, Kojima landed a job at Konami, a combination that would end up making one of the best franchises ever made. But enough about Penguin Adventure. This week, we're talking about this other game that people actually remember. And no, it's not Police Nuts.
So with that said, let's play some Metal Gear.
In this review, I'll be playing the Metal Gear Legacy Collection on the PlayStation 3, because who owns an MSX in 2017? Not me. I have student loans to pay off. And damn if this isn't the best way to experience the franchise. On one disc you have Metal Gear Solid 2, 3 and Peace Walker, with the original Metal Gear 1 and 2 inside Metal Gear Solid 3. On the other disc you got Metal Gear Solid 4. Then you got a digital download code for Metal Gear Solid and VR missions on the PlayStation Store. And finally, you get the graphic novel adaptation of Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 somewhere in there. Confused? Yeah, me too. Basically, if you want to get into the franchise, this package got you covered. Just keep in mind that all the games on here are in beautiful HD, but due to the PS3's HDCP, I'll have to record through AV. I think you'll survive. Survive? Survive? Oh, and there's also this pamphlet for a Konami loyalty program, because you know, that doesn't sound ominous at all.
Get on with it.
Fine. So, it's the futuristic year of 1995, and a small military base in South Africa called Outer Heaven are apparently working on some unknown weapon of mass destruction. Enter Big Boss, overall badass and leader of the high-tech Special Forces unit Foxhound. Or is it Foxhound or Foxhound? Foxhound? Whatever. Big Boss sends his best agent, Grey Fox, to infiltrate the base. But because Grey Fox isn't the main character, he goes missing. So Big Boss sends another guy to find him. And that person is you, Solid Snake. And so, armed with nothing but a pack of cigarettes and a stylish bandana, you infiltrate the enemy base to save Grey Fox and destroy this unknown weapon. Psst, it's Metal Gear. The weapon is called Metal Gear. That's why the games are called Metal Gear, because they're important. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Easy to follow? We'll enjoy that while it lasts. I'm not gonna blame Kojima too much on the story here. It was his first narrative-driven game, and therefore he had yet really hit those story sweet spots that the whole franchise would be known for. So no political commentary, no airy predictions about the future of mankind, and no talk about memes, genes, or nanomachines. But the story itself is still very ahead of its time, at least compared to the status quo of saving princess from scary monster thing. It contains different fleshed out characters and even a few plot twists to keep the story going. It's not bad by any definition, but future installments might have spoiled me a bit, so it's fair to say this game is the weakest link in the story department out of all the Metal Gear games. Arguably. Oh, it fucking hurts. Oh, god. So you start the game without any items or weapons, except for a pack of cigarettes, because this game was made in the 80s. See, in case you hadn't picked up on it yet, Metal Gear is a stealth game, meaning your goal is to avoid direct combat at all costs at all time. But that's not to say there's any shortage of weapons, however. Throughout the game you'll pick up weapons around the base, from handguns to submachine guns to grenade launchers and rocket launchers. Jesus Christ, this really was the 80s. I think Snake is packing more firepower by the end of this game than Arnold did in Commando. So you're by no means defenseless, but the name of the game is still stealth. Stepping into the enemy line of sight will immediately sound the alarm, and you'll either have to fight everyone there, or just walk away. And for that matter, what's with the enemy AI in this game? The guards all suffer from tunnel vision, the T-1000 twins can't stay focused for more than 3 seconds, and the dogs can only attack on a straight line. I'm not angry about the last part, because those dogs are annoying. So fuck them. You'll also come across various bosses like the motherfucking Shotmaker, Machine Gun Kid, Hindy, whatever the hell this is, and Dirty Duck, fucking Dirty Duck. Out of all the memorable bosses in this franchise, and nobody mentions Dirty Goddamn Duck. Scattered around the base, you'll also find a bunch of prisoners just lying around without paying the rent. After freeing a certain amount, your rank will increase, allowing you to carry more ammo and food rations, which are basically this game's health restore. Not that there's any shortage of either in this game, since they respawn whenever you leave the screen. You can just keep coming back and fill up your inventory. You'll also pick up keycards. God damn! So there's 8 different kinds of keycards in this game, with some doors only being unlocked by a certain one. The problem here, of course, is being that at the end of the game, half of your inventory will be nothing but keycards, and there's no way to tell which keycards open which door either. You'd think that after getting card 5, all doors later in the game would be for card 5 or higher, but out of nowhere, you'll encounter some random doors that can only be opened by card 2. So you'll be fumbling around with all the keycards like some overly buffed janitor.
Like I said, key to everything.
In one word, this game plays classic Metroidvania. You start out practically naked, gather items, explore your surroundings, gather more items, backtrack to previous areas and use those items to unlock new areas to explore and pick up more items. Rinse, repeat, ad infinitum. Or is it infinitum? I don't speak Spanish. And eventually, if you don't suck at the game, you'll find Grey Fox after getting yourself captured, which I totally did on purpose. And discover that this unknown weapon of mass destruction really is Metal Gear. I never would have figured. Basically, it's a giant bipedal mech with the capability to launch a nuclear-armed missile from anywhere in the world to everywhere in the world. And it's kinda in every single game in the franchise. So take notes, kids. And now it's up to you, or Snake, or whoever, to blow it the hell up and save the world. Good fucking luck. As I said, I'm playing this on a PS3, which is probably a good thing, because I don't think the original MSX keyboard controls were much to brag about. You control with the arrow keys, you shoot and use items with space, and you punch with N, with the F1, 2, 3, 4 keys being for the menus. But the hell with that. I use the DualShock for my game experiences, and so should you. You control with the arrow keys or the analog stick if you're feeling dangerous. You press either the X button or circle button to punch, and the square button fires your gun. Using the L2 and R2 buttons open the equipment and weapon screens respectively. And pressing select opens the codec, where you can get various information from your team, which ranges in usefulness. Being a lot more used to the 3D games and their style of moving, it feels very restricting going back to only moving in 4 directions. It feels a lot less like Metal Gear Solid and more like Zelda 1 on the NES. It's kind of stiff, and moving around can sometimes feel like a chore, but never quite a burden. It might not even cross your mind at all unless you're cynical and highly judgmental. Like me. Well, it's 8-bit. You got some blue over there, and a little brown hair, and a little hair. And it's that little bit of green I see. In all seriousness, I don't have too much of an opinion on the graphics. Like sound and control, they're pretty much a product of their time, and it all depends on how you like 8-bit graphics. Since it's a military game, it doesn't surprise me that half of the game's color palette is some shade of brown, so I guess some habits die hard. But at least it's simplistic. The screen never feels too cluttered, both in the map and the HUD. You got your weapons over here, your items here, your life and your class, which is linked to how much ammo and items you can carry. There isn't much more to the game other than what you're seeing on screen, and there's nothing that really stands out graphically. Except this part. I like this. Yeah, I guess the codec also looks nice, got some decent animation, but Snake doesn't look quite like Mel Gibson yet, so I'm not completely persuaded.
What the fuck?
The music is good. The music is damn good. In fact, the music is too good. Because in a game where you're supposed to avoid alerting the enemies, it really doesn't make any sense to set the most catchy song ever conceived on a PSG sound chip as the alert music. I bet at least half of the alerts I got in this game I got on purpose just so I could hear that music again. The other half I probably got because I suck at stealth games. The other songs are also good, although some might get a little grating after a half an hour because you can't get out of these damn sewers. But I won't hold that against them. Other than that, there really isn't any other things to talk about in this segment, so here's a picture of a turtle. You know, in the end I found Metal Gear to be a very mixed bag. At the time of its release, it laid down the groundwork for most of the stealth genre, as well as giving a huge push for games to use their stories more effectively. Clearly a byproduct of Kojima's love for films, and attempted career as a movie maker that really paid off in the later games. Sadly, a lot of the game has become outdated by now, showing signs of messy programming, stiff controls, and an AI that makes Skyrim look impressive by comparison. But it feels wrong criticizing this game, seeing what powerhouse the franchise would become. It's like going to your favorite YouTuber and going all the way back to their first video. What you'll find is probably completely shit. What you'll find is probably completely different from how they are today, And just like those videos, this game is strangely charming. You can clearly see the gears turning, no pun intended, as the team tries to find small ways to go beyond the limits of what an MSX game can be. And while it would be easy to just sweep it under the rug and pretend it never happened, Kojima chose instead to embrace his games in future installments, letting it become the first step in a storyline that would span almost 3 decades and 5 console generations. So, would I recommend Metal Gear on the MSX? Kinda. If you're a hardcore Metal Gear fan and can get through the problems I've listed earlier, then you owe it to yourself to at least give it a try, just for completion's sake, I guess. It's fun to see where all these characters started out, and how they changed from the jump to 3D. But if you're looking to get into the series from scratch, then your best bet is probably to skip this game and go straight for Metal Gear Solid. It fills you in on all the events of this game through a nice summary, while also giving a few throwbacks that longtime fans will pick up on. But that's a story for another time.
Well, that was easy. I guess next time it's Metal Gear 2. Solid Snake. Yes.
Eric, this is Big Boars. You can't end the review here. You need to review the sequel too.
I'm going to. Next week.
There's no time to wait. It's your first review, so you need to make it a super special double feature.
But then I'll have to spoil the ending to the first game for the second one to even make sense.
It's not like anyone on the internet cares about spoilers anyways. Now stop interrupting your shitty reviews with these stupid plot segments.
You're the one who keeps interrupting me with his... Hello? Hello? So, where were we?
Okay, let's make this a quick, I got shit to do. The origin of Metal Gear 2 is actually rather interesting. As some of you know, Metal Gear was also ported to the NES. The port is considered mediocre at best, and you don't even fight Metal Gear. Instead you have to strap explosives to this evil supercomputer that's not voiced by Harlan Ellison. The game is also filled with glitches, censorship and more grammatical errors than this script. Well, that's just meta. Now Kojima had actually nothing to do with this port, but the game still did well enough to warrant a sequel, so Konami got the team that made the NES port to work on the follow-up, again without Kojima's involvement. In fact, Kojima had no idea the sequel was even being made. Only reason he found out was when he met one of the sequel's designer at a train. And upon hearing the news, Kojima went to Konami and was like,
"Give me some money so I can make my own sequel, with blackjack and hookers."
And Konami was like,
"Okay."
And that's the gist of it. And to think that if Kojima didn't come across this random guy at some random train, this game, and maybe even the whole franchise, wouldn't exist. Now that's some butterfly effect shit right there. So how does the sequel compare to the original? Well... Now before I go on with this franchise, there is a very important thing you probably should know about, which does involve spoiling the first game's ending. You fight Metal Gear. Oh my god! And then you blow it up. Also, you find out that Big Boss was the bad guy all along. And then you blow him up. I'm just getting this out of the picture to save you some headache for future videos. Until Metal Gear Solid 5. So now it's 1999, the Cold War is over and all nukes are gone.
Hooray!
But now we have an oil crisis.
Ooh.
But wait, this scientist has found a new energy source by bioengineering algae into producing petroleum.
Yay!
I was then immediately kidnapped and taken to this micronation called Zanzibar land in the Middle East and is now being held hostage along with the world's remaining nuclear arsenal.
Oh fuck.
Guess it's time to send Snake back in again to save the world. Yeah, that's kind of a recurring thing in this franchise. So once again we find ourselves at the edge of a military base without any weapons or items. And the goal is again to get to the end and destroy Metal Gear. Oh, I'm sorry, is that a spoiler? Because it's still called Metal Gear. So it's safe to assume the final boss isn't gonna turn out to be Steve Buscemi. Also, it's right there in the title screen. Navigating the world has now become easier thanks to the addition of this box, the radar. It gives you a map of the surrounding areas and shows where the enemies are. This gives you more information to plan and strategize how you want to get your way around. To make it easier, Snake can now crawl on the ground, allowing him to sneak through vents and hide from enemies. And this shows the biggest difference between Metal Gear 1 and 2 in my opinion. The second game is an actual stealth game, with an emphasis on using your character's varied moveset as tools to navigate the levels in whatever way you prefer. The first game is more like,
walk around with weapons and shoot things, but I'll try not to get seen by the guards or I'll still annoy you for a few seconds, but then they'll leave.
Here, getting caught feels like an actual punishment that you only have yourself to blame for, because you have this big ass map telling you where everyone is, and if you're careless enough to let someone get too close, then hey, that's all on you. And now, the biggest improvement they've made from the first game, key cards. I mean, you still have a metric shit ton of keycards more than you ever need, but now for every third keycard you get, you can backtrack to this room and have them replaced with one universal keycard. So instead of having 9 keycards, you now only have to drag around 3. Still, it's all optional and kind of hidden away, but the sentiment is always appreciated. And now it's time for a things they added or changed that I want to mention but didn't want to write a paragraph about. Lightning round. Big Boss is still dead as shit, so now your new codec waifu is Colonel Sam Troutman. Master Miller is also here, but he's not spewing fiddle memes, so I'm gonna ignore him until the next game. Snake is no longer mute, so all the one-side monologues from the first game have been replaced with actual dialogue, and there's a lot of it. Snake can travel through garbage chutes. This maze segment can go to hell. This swamp maze segment can especially go to hell. Usain Bolt is a boss. Deep commentary on child soldier indoctrination. Also Snake can creep on people in the sauna. There is an elevator to the sewers in the girls' bathroom. There is a girls' bathroom despite being no girls in the entire base, I think. Snake can use a bucket as a bulletproof cover. There are more mannequins in this game than in every Unity Engine indie horror game combined. Now while I'm hyped up on caffeine and crystal meth, let's do a quick summary of controls, graphics and sound. Literally the same control scheme as the first game, except this time you can press X to crouch. On the MSX keyboard, however, you have to press the punch and shoot button simultaneously to crouch, which I can only imagine how clunky that has to feel, so for God's sake stick to the PlayStation release. God, I love this thing. Despite only being released 3 years after the first game, and on the same system no less, the graphics have taken a giant step upwards. You still have your military browns, greens and greys, but it's now intercut with areas in vibrant yellows, pinks and blues. And this variety really helps to make the game stand out from its predecessor. I also like how they did some of the effects, like this harsh blue and black to simulate ice draining darkness, or this red alarm light which is something straight out of Alien, or my bathroom. Yes, I RGB modded my bathroom, don't judge me. The HUD has also gotten a makeover, which can look a lot more cluttered compared to the first game's minimalistic approach, but I never got distracted by it. It's still easy to understand the basics of just by looking at it. If anything, it helps to immerse me in the game. Now take note that the icons in the Snake Eater re-release, and by extension this copy, had their codex avatars replaced with a more cartoony and accurate depiction of the characters, while the original MSX game had a bunch of borrowed pictures of real-life actors. Yeah, remember that joke about Sam Troutman I made earlier? Well, in the MSX game it's an actual picture of Sam Troutman ripped straight from Rambo. Other characters include Mel Gibson, Sean Connery, Dolph Lundgren, Bob Hoskins, Tom Berenger. Even Albert Einstein managed to sneak himself into this. Again, same sound chip, but holy hell is the music quality gone up. It's almost 16-bit by comparison to the first game, though both graphically and soundically. The MSX2 is a pure 8-bit computer. Instead of beeps and boops and triangles, there are now these soft synth-like instruments in the tracks. Sadly, the alert music is not as catchy as in Metal Gear 1, but the game's strongest track is now in the opening cinematic, which both looks and sounds great, and pulls you into this gritty post-Cold War world of espionage and advanced weaponry, which really is the core essence of the Metal Gear franchise. Yes, I'm saying Metal Gear is cyberpunk. Fight me! Now it may seem like I'm rushing through this game, which by all means I am, because it's way past my bedtime and I need to finish this video. But the biggest reason why is because I'm not actually finished talking about this game. I won't spoil too much now, but you Metal Gear fanboys out there know what I'll talk about in the next episode. And that'll give me more leeway to discuss the game more in detail without having to worry about spoiling the story too much. Because it's the later half of the game that has the stuff I really want to discuss. But overall, is Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake a good game? Hell yes! Where I was on the fence about the first game holding up today, the second game goes way over the fence and is on its way to the neighboring city already. Everything that worked in Metal Gear has been kept, and everything that didn't work has either been cut out or drastically changed for the better. So if you played the first one I was like, nah, play this one. If you've only played the Solid games, go back and give it a try. And if you've already played this game, play it again because it's totally worth it. Though I still stand by the recommendation that you have never played a Metal Gear game, you should probably just start on Metal Gear Solid and just move back to this one some other time. Sure, there might be a few problems with the game, all games have problems, but just by comparing how much positive and negative I've talked about this game, in contrast with the first one, shows how much the sequel improved on the formula, and will continue to improve on in the future. Because believe me when I say, the best is yet to come.
So what to do now?
Usually the best way to end a review is to parody the ending to that game.
I don't like where this is going.
Now, how'd the first game end again?
I really don't like where this is going.
With such a goddamn shitty review, it wouldn't hurt to go out with a bang. Heh. Bang. Heh.
Well, in the next episode, we'll take a look at Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation 1. Hopefully. Well,